So here we are in the fourth and final part of my creating an in-depth character series. We've looked at how to give your characters a solid foundation from which to grow from, making sure that you pick something that you want to play and are comfortable playing. We've then looked at how to develop their backstory further using inspiration from the random tables available in Xanathars, and then finally how to flesh them out, fill out the corners at the table of who your character is by their character voice. Now we come on to the final part. There are far more things, far more details that make up a person than what is presented in the character creation segments of the DMG, Player's Handbook, Xanathar, all of that. You as a person have 100, 1,000 of little idiosyncrasies and opinions that might never be relevant at any point, but they still make up part of who you are. And it's these little details that I feel really bring a character to life. So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, character questionnaires have been around for a long time. I imagine well before the internet, everything, but the internet did certainly help make them a lot more widely available and popular. As things like the fanfic community grew, as did the general consensus of making these original characters, as did the concept of making original characters based in already existing pieces of fiction, the need or the want to flesh these characters out more, to have that help, that way of fleshing out who your character is, became far more prominent. Now, these things can largely come down to just flavor. We have what you would call the necessary framework. You could do part one of this series, and that's all you really need to actually come and play D&D, having a class and a race and a vague idea of maybe some backstory, and then that is all you need really to play D&D. But if you are wanting to achieve the goal of this whole series, creating a more in-depth character, then flavor is what gives a character depth. What is your character's favorite color? Why is that their favorite color? Do they associate it with something in their life? Has it been something that is tied to their backstory? It doesn't have to be. They could just like blue because they like blue and it looks good on them. For example, my favorite color is red. In case you didn't guess, if you know me, I wear a lot of red hoodies. And I used to wear even more red, but I've since cooled off a little bit and wear a lot more blue and grey. Now, red started off probably as just a colour that I liked. I enjoyed the strength of it, or whatever reason it was that younger me was like, I like red. But that has developed as I've got older as to why I still really like red and why it has a lot of meaning to me as a person. I like it just as a colour that goes with the kind of outfits I wear. It's a nice strong colour. Maroon is such a good colour. If you can be maroon, be maroon. But then this has a wider emotional impact because my favourite hoodie is red, and that hoodie is my favourite hoodie because it was the hoodie I had when a lot of bad stuff happened to me. It kind of became a weird security blanket thing in a way. And so I'd rather associate red with that hoodie and then red with safety, which I don't think is what you're really meant to associate red with. My paladin, Nyx, who I've mentioned before in these videos, her favourite colour is pink. And that is because it is the colour of her mum's hair, and she had pink in her hair for a long time as well. And that pink combined with the sort of very light golden blonde of her hair earned her the nickname Honeysuckle by her mum, which is something that then has a lot of importance to her. Even these small, seemingly inconsequential questions can have a lot of meaning behind them and can help really flesh out who your character is. If they find something important, why that thing is important says so much about them. Now, the questions that get asked in these questionnaires can vary wildly in tone and significance. You get questions that are like, what is your favorite color? What was the last thing they ate? What is their favorite food? A lot of these seeming inconsequential questions are, what are your character's favorite things? And I think that says a lot, those of you that are somewhat inconsequential, of finding out what someone likes the most. But that's less of a D&D thing and more of a capitalist, consumerist destruction of the self and what the self wants kind of thing. But then you do get the questionnaires that will ask the heavier questions. What does your character hold sacred? What are they willing to die for? What is their... Those kind of things, which are pretty important to know about a D&D character, because you're going to be killing a lot in D&D generally. Finding out then if your character has any specific qualms with that. Do they have a line? Like I would hope most people won't kill innocent people, but how well does that extend to goblins? If you have just entered into a goblin cave and you know that they have kidnapped someone, is your first thought, of course, like, oh, we will just kill our way through this place? Or will you try, is your character someone who's going to try diplomacy, going to try subterfuge, sneaking around, avoiding killing unless it is necessary? These all work as excellent prompts to make your character a more fully realized being. A person who is more than just numbers on a sheet, but as someone who has opinions about things that aren't necessarily tied to the cosmic struggle of good or evil, but just they have a life outside of what this campaign will be, and have had a life outside of what this campaign will be. And if they are solely, if everything about them solely is tied to what is happening in the story now and in future, then you kind of lose those little moments of discovery. I always feel like good RP comes with discovering something more about a character. In writing, you want every character interaction to serve a purpose, especially in things like screenwriting and scripts, and in prose, but you're less constrained a lot of the time. You have a limit. If you are writing a TV show that is 20 minutes long, every single line of dialogue in that needs to count, because if not, why is it there? Now, this is harder to do in D&D because not everyone is a trained writer, not everyone's a trained actor, and sometimes you just want to have like a chat. But if you know all these things about your character, stuff like what their favorite color is, what their favorite meal is, when the last time they had a bath was, it gives you those little moments that you can give away, those little tidbits of information that will help character interaction as well. That means you always have something that you can really kind of just throw in for RP that will spark a conversation. If you have a group of friends, ask them now, what is their favorite shape? And I will guarantee you this will spark a surprising amount of discussion, because it's not something a lot of people really think about, and two, people have weird opinions about shapes. People have favorite shapes. I have a favorite shape. It's a hexagon. A hexagon is a fantastic shape. A conversation or piece of RP having meaning doesn't have to be spilling your heart and soul in character to these people. It can be, I learned what this character's favorite type of noodle was. And that goes just as far to fleshing out a character as divulging your terrible backstory. Terrible as in very sad, not bad. They can be both, but I'm having faith in you guys. Now, character questionnaires can also be custom made by DMs. If you have specific questions that you want to know the answer to as a DM when preparing for a campaign, or even like as the campaign is going on, if you are getting a stronger idea of what themes and points of story you're wanting to tell, finding out through things like a character questionnaire is a great way to then know what kind of story you're going to be telling and how you best to tell that story while remaining true to the characters, allowing the players to remain true to their characters. This is also super handy for players who find having a more rigid, structured framework to writing their backstory incredibly helpful. You can tailor the questions to get the important bits of backstory you need to tell your story and help them tell theirs in a fantastic, structured Q&A kind of way. You can give them this question sheet and be like, just fill this out, and that's all I'll need from you. Having that structure then stops the somewhat overwhelming feeling of having too much choice. If you are told, make a character backstory, that can be 20, 30, 500 years, potentially, of someone you need to create. And that can be incredibly overwhelming. But if you are like, I have these 10 questions I need to answer about my character, and that's all I need to have before we start playing, and everything else can follow on naturally, that's far more manageable. And because it's broken down, you can just take it a bit at a time. You know how much you have done, you know how much you have left to do, and it stops that overwhelming sense of, oh god, everything. And if you want a more communal vibe in your game as well, you can hash these questions out as a group in session 0. If you wanted a group that already know each other, this can be a great way of establishing what people know of each other ahead of time. There is a chance that if you've been traveling together for a while, you will know some weird and perhaps pointless details about these people, their idiosyncrasies, their opinions on things that aren't on this great cosmic scale, but are like, how do they like their eggs cooked? How crispy do they like their bacon? Do they like bacon? Are they a vegetarian? Do they make hot chocolate with water like some animal? These kinds of things are, important to building a character. The questionnaires are great because they give you more and more detail about your character. And I am someone who believes that you shouldn't come to the table with everything about your character set in stone. And these questionnaires can be fantastic as a rolling thing that you fill out. And you can have people go back and at certain points update their questionnaires, because characters' opinions shift and change. And characters grow for better or for worse, and their opinions and answers to those questions might change. But I don't think there are many problems that come from knowing too much about the character. The exception being that you become kind of locked in to decisions. And a character should always be flexible and changeable, because a person is flexible and changeable. Even if they're steadfast in their opinions and beliefs, stuff will happen that could very well change those opinions. Having these questions filled out can then serve as almost like a cheat sheet for both you as a player and the DM about the players as to what their character is going to do if you present them with a situation. There's a great quote from Griffin McElroy, the DM for the Adventure Zone. Well, former DM for the Adventure Zone, that's now held by Travis. But when running Taz Balance, Griffin received a lot of people claiming he was railroading the party and making there not be really any choices. Everything was a very linear A to B in these people's minds. And Griffin's response was, it's not that I'm railroading or not giving them choices, it's that they're my family, I know them, I know the choices they're going to make, I know I can, with reasonable degree of accuracy, guess that this is what they'll do. And by and large, he was right. There were 2 key moments I can think of where Griffin did not get it right, and those are 2 of the most dramatic, emotional moments in the campaign. And Griffin has said himself that he would not change any parts of them. If Griffin was a railroading DM, then in moments like Arms Outstretched, he would have just shut that down. He would have said, no, that's not how that spell works, that's not how this works, or that it just happens. But that's not what Griffin was doing. Griffin wasn't railroading them. Griffin was just able to predict what they were doing, and having these character questionnaires will allow you as a DM to be able to predict more how people will react in a situation. It's why I massively advocate for people to talk as a group with their party, with their DM outside of the sessions. Have a group chat, talk in it actively, get a good idea from your players about where their characters are at after each session. Especially in a big session. It's common belief in DMing and D&D in general that the big shock moments are the best moments of D&D. And that idea of just fuck me up, give me that in-character trauma. And those can make for very good story moments. And I have definitely had moments like that in my campaigns. But the thing that you have to do as a DM, if you are putting your players and their characters through that, you then have to essentially provide aftercare. If you are putting someone through a traumatic event, real or fake, then you need to be there afterwards to talk through it, to talk through everything with the player. Especially if you have players who are super invested in the story that you are telling, and you are getting strong emotional responses from them about it. Help them. For the love of God, help them. Be there for them to talk to and work through that stuff, because otherwise you're just kind of an asshole Now, I have written my own character questionnaire that will be available to my patrons as exclusive content. If you would like access to that, please do follow the link below and become a patron today. This is going to include a lot of the stuff that I feel is the most important things to know about a character. And a lot of these are going to be silly, a lot of them are going to be very serious, but they're all going to be broken down into key sections. Stuff about how does your character look aesthetics-wise, what are their aesthetic, their physicality, how upon a first glance do they appear. Are they going to think like what is their relationship to religion, to magic, what are their habits? All broken down little things, and then if you as a player or you as a DM are using this, you can be like, okay, I want to answer these sections, don't really care about these ones, and you're less of a case of, oh god, there are 100 questions, I need to answer all of them. There's 10 questions per section, so you can take as much or as little of the whole thing as you want, but I hope it is useful to those of you that have it. So that is Character Questionnaires, and that also brings us to the end of this 4-part series on making an in-depth character. Now, there is far more I could probably say on a lot of this than I have. There have been many late night Skype calls and Discord calls after a session has ended where me and people I play with have had long, in-depth conversations about D&D and characters and storytelling in general. And if this is something you'd like to see, if there's more long-form discussions, then please do check out twitch.tv/Stringer Designs on Tuesdays at 2:30 p.m. BST. Currently, I'm going to be streaming, hopefully every Tuesday from now on, and talking about D&D. When this goes out, the first one should be up as a VOD and available for you to watch if you're unable to catch it live, and you'll be able to see the next one the following Tuesday. But thank you all for watching this. I'd like to take a moment to thank my current patrons. Hopefully the promise of a character questionnaire entices a couple more of you. But I'd like to thank Raven Ranger, Mike Duller, and Francesca Forrest for their continued support. Because of people like you, I am slowly almost able to pay my phone bill just from Patreon. It's quite nice to be able to say that. But thank you all for watching. I don't know yet what next week's video is going to be on. I will figure that out in the coming week. But I will see you next time.